Sage Wanderer here, coming at you from Prague, Oklahoma. So, I wanted to just give you an update on what's going on with me. I have been absolutely obsessed with the new mission. If you've been watching the channel, I've talked about this in the previous video that I posted up, another phone video. But I put the camera to work this week, and I've started delivering a series of messages. I believe that the beginning of this new ministry is going to be built around me disseminating the truths as I see them. So I've started a new series that I have 2 episodes in the can. Well, they're recorded. I have to do a little minor editing, create some intros and outros like I do for the new series. But the series is called The Gospel According to Sage. And one of the things you might have noticed about this channel, that it's been devoid of a lot of direct preaching, and I have not engaged in any kind of Bible study, and it's because I don't like to argue about the Bible. But not to say I don't know how to argue about the Bible. I just find that at the risk of sounding arrogant, I'm just going to lay it on the table, folks. I have argued these religious points with the greatest minds in Christendom since I was 5 years old. If you know my story, you know where I come from, you know that's true. That I engaged in heated arguments, discussions. I laid traps for theologians who, I'm sorry, are way more qualified to argue than you are. They couldn't convince me. They couldn't shake me from what I know and what I have found out about the truth and the history of the church and the true nature of Jesus and the true nature of the gospel. In this series, I will open up your mind if you let me. And I will just simply ask you now 2 questions. What did Jesus do between the ages of 12 and when he returns in his 30s? For that 20-year period in there, where was Jesus? Also, what did Jesus do between his birth, and this, between the Christmas story and the story of him going to the temple and being bar mitzvahed? So, of 30-plus years of living, we know of 3.5 years of Jesus' life and his birth story. Does that seem plausible to you? Does that seem plausible that that's all that we know? And right about now, you're giving me one of those answers that I hate, that I get from clergy. That means I don't really know what I'm talking about, so I'm going to give you this. All right, you're giving me this right now. You're going, well, the Bible says that if everything that was written about Jesus was written down, it would fill volumes. Don't you think the rest of his life story is important enough? I mean, if we're talking about the King of Kings, if we're talking about, why is it gone? Is it gone because they didn't know the story? Or is there more to the story and it's been obscured over time? Or it's been deleted from the history line? Don't. Sorry, I had to throw one of those in there. I am still Sage Wanderer. Had you ever just stopped to think about the idea that somehow the childhood of Jesus is unimportant and not worth writing down? That no one had anything to say about his childhood, not his cousin, John the Baptist, not his mom, Mary, not, his family members, not his brother, James. Nobody decided to write down about Jesus' childhood, what that must have been like. Did Jesus just have the adult epiphany at the age of 30-something that he was the Son of God? And that he had some new gospel and some new message for the world? That seems to be at odds with Jesus' very miraculous birth and his escape from the murderous hands of Herod and their flight to Egypt and the holy men and the star and all of it. Seems absolutely at odds with the idea that his childhood was somehow normal or that his young adulthood didn't matter. So it's questions like this that have led me on my journey. And I have found answers that will shock you. And this series, I'm going to lock down on who Jesus was. I'm going to ignore everything else that is unaffiliated with Jesus, but If it has to do with Jesus, I'm going to track it down for you. Like a biblical archaeologist, we're going to go down through time and find the true Jesus and decipher what he meant. And we're not going to take anybody else's word for it. Once again, I've got to say, I'm not here to shake you loose from your church. If you think you have found the truth, then please shove off. Really, just go away. Just go watch my Bigfoot videos, and maybe I'll make some more stuff about homesteading, and, you know, maybe I'll do some kitty videos or some, you know, like puppy dog videos. We'll just get Radar in a tug-of-war match with 22, his new buddy, and we'll just put that up here, and, you know, just enjoy that. And I do have to speak to Miss Kitty in particular. I asked that you not do what you did. I deleted your comment. If you'd like to be on the channel and continue commenting, please don't do what you did. And just so that no one repeats what she did, she just openly rebuked me, gave me the company line of whatever religious sect she's from without any real scriptural background, condemned me, warned me, tried to shoot down my ministry before it got started. And that was unwelcomed, ineffective, ridiculous, and rude. So if you guys would like to continue that trend, I'll be forced to use whatever means I have at my disposal to delete your comment or remove you permanently from this forum if I can. And so I don't intend to just have you guys challenge me by giving me your... If these people that are watching these videos wanted your idea of Christianity, they could stumble into any run-of-the-mill church and hear the same tired thing every day, every Sunday, Sunday in, Sunday out, with little variation. What you told me, Miss Kitty, is just the company line, man. It's just the same ball of malarkey that they've been feeding to people for the last several hundred years that's led to this world that being in the mess it's in. If you think you know everything, shove off. Start your own YouTube channel. But don't come on here and challenge me. I haven't got time for it. We don't have time for it. The people who are going to go straight to hell without Jesus don't have time for it. You know, I don't have time for your opinion on when it's the right time to baptize people. You know, I don't have time to reschool you and argue with you. I could tell you how you're just absolutely wrong. The idea that you don't baptize somebody. The Catholics baptize babies. So you can say you disagree with me, but you can't tell me that I'm wrong and leading people astray. The Bible admonishes us to dunk them as soon as possible. It's putting a seal on them. I mean, really, honestly, historically, throughout the church, it's always gone like this. Denounce Satan, accept Jesus, be baptized, period. The rest is gravy. The rest is discipleship. The rest is the job of the fellow Christians around you and people who might be called to leadership. But the job of an evangelist has always been the same, and that's really what I'm talking about here, is just evangelism. But the problem is, religion has poisoned our culture. Religion has poisoned the mind of a whole generation. There's a whole generation of people that hear Jesus and they want to throw up. And it's not because they hate Jesus, and it's not even because the devil is inside them or something. It's because they've been mistreated by some Christian who thought he knew everything and treated them like crud. And destroyed their, and they probably did it when they were little kids. You know, some mean Karen type personality in the church got some little kid down and used him as an example and beat his little spirit up and condemned him to hell and made him fear for his eternal soul without introducing him to the mercy and love of Jesus first, and ruined him for the faith forever. Sound familiar? My viewership is primarily of the people I just described. You understand that, right? Miss Kitty and others who want to preach to Sage. Don't preach to Sage. Come on. The shoe's on the other foot. If you're here to get preached to. I don't need you to preach to me. And no offense, but if God wanted to change my mind about my revelation and my truth I'm about to dispense, he would use somebody other than you. And I know you quoted the scripture. He uses the simple to confound the wise. But honestly, that's an exception to the rule, not the rule. And generally, God uses godly men with articulate arguments, charismatic personalities, and supernatural insight to change people like me. And if I needed changing, he most likely would not send you. So, shove off. You know, I'm going to keep saying this, shove off. That just means go away. Because this series that I'm releasing, the one I'm already too deep in it now. I'm two series. I'm over an hour and a half of teaching already into it, and I keep getting. I have to rest from it because what I'm doing is supernaturally channeling the Holy Spirit. That this message is not just my truth. It's not just my gospel. This message is it's that little ring that looks like a donut that hangs on the side of a ship with a rope on it that you're supposed to throw people who are lost in the sea and pull them to safety. That's what my message is. It's not a hovering aircraft with a guy on a harness lowered down to pluck you out of the water. It's not an eagle, a giant eagle like came and got Gandalf from the Lord of the Rings and plucked him up and took him away to safety. No, it's just a guy standing on a safe spot trying to throw you a line. Right? I'm just trying to throw you the lifeline. We don't have time to make perfect Christians. There's no time, if there even is such a thing as a perfect Christian. Once again, the Bible tells me if you say you don't sin, you're a liar. And, you know, some of us can't get out of bed in the morning without sinning first. It's just, you know, this is why we need Jesus. And that's what this is all about. I'm not trying to undo your teachings. This isn't for you Christians. It's for people like I've described that are hurting, people that have been injured by the church, victims of sexual abuse at the hands of clergy, victims like me who were beaten by preachers who were supposed to represent God. I mean, you understand that when I talk about the old Marine, he was a Marine for a handful of years, like for 4 years he was a Marine, really. It had an impact on him. But my dad was a minister for 4 decades. And you ever wonder why I don't really present him to you in that way? Because he didn't act much like Jesus when nobody was looking. And people that love him hate to hear me talk about him because he was a very respected man. But my own sisters did not know the extent of the butt whoopings that I got, to the degree that it was for his pleasure, not for my punishment. Let's get it straight. He was venting his own demons, and I was just the whipping boy. In so many ways, I can relate to Jesus when I watched his flesh be torn by the cat of nine tails. I mean, I don't have scars, visible scars, although I carried the bruises of those beatings daily from my childhood. So this channel is for people who've been wronged by the church. It's for people who've been lied to by the clergy. It's for people who don't know what's going on. It's for people who just want to cut the crap and get straight to the realness of it, which is love and Jesus and loving your neighbor and doing the right thing even when it hurts. Walking a mile in somebody else's shoes, trying to look at things through somebody else's lens for a minute. Compassion, mercy, grace, not judgment. Come on, people. How is it that you can create all these new sins like smoking and drinking and cussing, right, and ignore the one that Jesus talked about the most, being a judgmental person, condemning people for their sinfulness? Jesus said, "He who is without sin cast the first stone." This is why I only pick on clergy people who worship money, because I never have. It's the only stone I can throw. Honestly, the worship of money and power and hurting people for your own benefit is the only thing I can condemn, because it's the only sin I haven't committed. You will never get any kind of sexual judgment out of this old healing, still in the healing process, sex addict. I mean, I've talked about a little bit. I mentioned it. But if you want to know the thorn in my side, I won't be as vague as the Apostle Paul was. I'm a recovered sex addict. And there ain't no way I can condemn you after all the things I've done. I can't condemn you for any of your addictions. I can't cast a stone one, except at the people who hide those sins in their own life or other sins in their life and then condemn other people for what they themselves do in secret. Those are the only people I'm better than, because I've been kind of an open book And even in this channel, I don't go into details because it's when I say I got issues in my life that none of you need to know about, well, I do. You know, that's why having 2 years of, almost 2 years, I can't quite, everybody falls. I can't quite claim the whole 2 years, but 2 years of my life recently that you've been with me on this channel has been 2 years of celibacy. Sometimes people who are thinking about me romantically from the channel, women, and even sometimes, a couple times I've been hit on by men who, I don't know, who knows? I don't even get into that. But I was asked by this one person, are you a single gay? And I said, no, I'm a celibate monk. Because that's how I've been living for a couple years. And I think most of you who are wise and are intuitive understand that, you know, a guy that lives alone, and there's a reason why I lock myself up in a cabin or a shack down by the creek or a van down by the river. Because I am still trying to slay my own demons, right? I'm not perfect. I don't claim to be. I need grace more than any of y'all do. Paul said these same things. The very Paul that people use to condemn people. They'll pull out of context things that Paul said to just revive the law and just condemn everybody to be under the law and totally dismiss grace. When Paul himself said that because he oppressed the church. Many of you don't know that Paul was more than likely the person who stoned Stephen to death, the first Christian martyr. That historically, you don't know this because, you know, you've been relegated to only looking in the Bible. But when you go on a little search for Saul, a well-known citizen of Rome, you find a enforcer for the Sanhedrin Council with the full blessing of Rome to stamp out these weirdo Christian people that are rising up after Jesus's crucifixion. So Saul rises to the occasion, and he is responsible for rising up the mob that stoned the disciple Stephen to death, the first Christian martyr after Christ. And so, you know, he himself would basically talk about how he didn't even feel worthy, that he was the least of Jesus's apostles, and he called himself a servant. You know, and so I very much relate to that. I have a thorn in my side. You know, it's why I keep to myself. I'm not dangerous. I just, here's the deal. And I'm going to sound arrogant, but to some women, I'm completely irresistible. And my musical gift is a tool and a method that I have used to surround myself with beautiful women my entire life. Now, when I'm monogamous, I'm monogamous. And during the ministry, I was monogamous. It didn't stop women in the church from chasing me around my desk. I was just telling my sister the other day a story of a gymnast who went to a church that I worked at, who cornered me in my office, knowing I was married. She knew my wife, and she was just telling me what a turn-on I was to her spiritually. And she was trying to, she chased me around and around. And she tried to set situations up, and her daughter was in my youth group and tried to lure me to her house. I had to complain to the bishop about her. And it's not anything I do. And women have told me that it's my heart, that broken child is attractive. So it didn't go anywhere. I wasn't invited. You know what I mean? But I guess I didn't mean to come here and confess, but you need to know that I believe in grace, because without it, I'm doomed. And furthermore, I set out at an early age to be in hot pursuit of Jesus. And I learned some things that now it's time to share. And I have a very specific group of people that were hurt by preachers, people that were molested at church camp, okay? These are the people I'm called to. People that no longer go to church because they don't believe in it anymore. People who uncovered some of the lies that I will reveal and also show you why they lied. Not just how they lied, but why and where it came from. You know, I've studied all this. I'm not just a student of the Bible. I'm a student of history. I'm a student of Jesus and everything about Jesus and everything relating to Jesus, everything that led up to Jesus' life, and everything about Jesus after his life and after his life on earth, as it were. You can choose to believe me or not. I will eventually roll this out through this new series. I don't know how much the rest of the channel will get attention right now. Enjoy the catalog of previous videos. I may do some here and there. I'm not saying I won't, but right now I'm singularly obsessed with taking this new, $2,000 worth of video equipment and putting it to work for this message and for this purpose. Because Earth is a prison planet. Our society is crumbling. The devil has risen to power and has taken control of the earth. God's not in control. The devil's full in control, and y'all are about to see how in control he is. It's temporary. He's temporarily in control. Because here's the thing, and I've said this before. The earth is the dominion of God. God controls the earth, but he delegated control of it to us, then gave us free will, and we've been deceived by a devil who's now taken control of the earth. Pretty simple, really. And the key is, we got to denounce the devil, draw close to Christ, and get as many people as baptized as possible on our side. Because if we don't, he's going to turn those people into automatonic, demonically possessed soldiers for their side. Give that some thought. I'm not just saving people from the fire. I'm diminishing the devil's army. Because these people, if we don't get them sealed, this is what we're talking about. We're talking about the end time sealing. If we don't get some people sealed by God who can fight this rising evil, then we're all doomed. You understand? None of this will survive it. And Jesus is going to win in the end. We know that. I've read the back of the book. But how many of us escape that lake of fire so many of you like to talk about is still up for grabs and not set, in my opinion. I do not necessarily believe completely in the idea of predestination. We have free will. If we have free will, then we must get to as many people as possible. The ship is going down. You all know that. So, join with me in this new series because you agree with me and you want to hear what I have to say, or because you don't know anything and you're curious, and this is a different version than anything you've heard before, and you'll see soon it is. You'll see soon that what I've done here, and you'll understand that this is important. If you're going to try to change my mind, guess again, all you're going to do is get yourself deleted off the channel. I'm just going to treat you like a leftist troll. I really will. I'll just use all the tools I've learned in fighting the leftist trolls to get rid of you if you come on the channel and challenge me from this traditional Christian church. If your Christian church works so good, how come the devil's in control of the earth? How come Trump's not still president? How come Q was wrong? How come, there's not been a big revival you got promised? How come the rapture hasn't happened, even though we're smack dab in the middle of the end times, if you ask me? I mean, why didn't you win? Why are your churches filled with hypocrites, liars, and thieves? Why did the whole church roll over and accept the jab and the mask and the lockdown? Not one of them stood up and said, well, maybe one or two. One or two had enough guts to stand up and say, Jesus is my provider and I'm not afraid of some stupid virus. That if it were 10 times as deadly, I still wouldn't wear your shame muzzle. I still would go to church and go and do what I please because I don't answer to you, scientist. I answer to God. They shut down. They stayed home. In Canada, a couple of those guys went to jail. A couple of guys in the South went to jail to keep the church open. Your church is a failure. The church age is over. That's the theme of all this. The church age is over. It's time for the end-time church to rise, and the end-time church will be built on love, forgiveness, mercy, grace, and the real historical Jesus. Join me, but if you oppose me, maybe I'll tell some stories about people who tried to oppose me in the past. I'm not threatening. I don't have to. I could sit out here in my little cabin in the woods and, yeah, karma sown seeds, right? The seeds you're sowing will come right back and choke you out. I don't even have to be there. I don't even have to know about it. But I can tell you some stories. I wouldn't come after somebody who's preaching love. That's a good way to not be on the right side. All right, so I'm up here occupying some prime real estate by the lake this afternoon, and I'm going to let you guys go. But know this, if I'm not posting, it doesn't mean I'm not producing. Right now, I've already got about 2 hours, or about an hour and a half probably, of material already recorded, not to mention the hour that I've already uploaded with this video and the previous video. So I'm producing, I'm just, this is timeless, so it can come out a little bit at a time or all at once or in chunks, it doesn't really matter. I'm going with the flow of the Spirit, and right now, talking, if you can't tell, talking about this is the thing that I think is important. And I'm going to build this thing the way Jesus built his ministry. See, Jesus didn't change the world. Jesus changed 12 people, and they changed the world. Well, 11, because one of them wouldn't change. Don't be a Judas. Are you going to be the one that doesn't change? I need disciples. I need people who can take this message to the world in a really physical way. I can't be everywhere all at once. I learned through some very important and intelligent men down through the decades that the most successful people delegate. I have to replicate myself. I can't possibly reach the whole world, even with this wonderful device I've got. In the end, you new Christians need hands to hold. You need arms to hug you. You need people to bail you out of jail. You need people to call in the middle of the night when you're trying to kick a drug habit. You need people to call when you're at your wit's end and you don't want to live anymore, right? You need each other. You need a church, not a building, not a religious movement. A church is people. People who need people. And I can't be that to everyone. So I intend to use this platform to create a well of followers, hopefully, who are on board with what I'm trying to do and understand my methods. I'm going to use this platform to train you, and then we're going to start meeting. A lot of people are like, are you trying to start a survivalist retreat? Not really. I'm going to choose some disciples, and we're going to meet together, and then we're going to meet in larger groups, maybe annually. One thing about where I live, and you'll find this if you go searching, the only thing Sparks, Oklahoma is known for is the giant motorcycle rally that happens every June. And it's not as big as Sturgis, but it's big, pretty big. And last year, I wasn't quite moved up here when it happened. But it causes everyone and their grandma to have an RV park. There's so many RV parks around here. I could host 10,000 people here someday. And it would be rather cheap and easy because there's so many cabins and so many RV parks that really are only occupied 1 week out of the whole year. So off-season rates are cheap. And so I don't have the space to host big numbers, but because of where I live, I could do to Sparks what the motorcycle rally does to Sparks. Also, the Assemblies of God campground, I think, is in Sparks for Oklahoma. I think it's right there in that little town. A lot going on there for there being nothing there. So I have more of the vision than I had 3 days ago. I'm on target. I'm going to make these teaching videos to show you the truth that I've discovered, show you what's been obscured by dubious clergy and by power-hungry church leaders. And I'll show you, I'll lead you to the core nugget, which really is love, but that's easier said than shown, right? Love is, anybody can say love, showing love is a sacrifice. So we got to reveal to you the secret of the love of Jesus. And when you get that in your heart, the whole world changes. If we could get that in everyone's heart, the whole world could change. Could we stop the end times? Could we reverse it? It is possible. We do have free will supposedly, right? We're not robots. If everyone chose to follow the love of Jesus tomorrow to a T, wouldn't heaven on earth just suddenly erupt? Y'all got to stop thinking inside the box. That's what I'm here for. Help you think outside the box. So I'm going to wrap this video up. God save all of us. God help us all, and we'll see you next time.